Once the 2023 craft show season was over, I decided to redo the storage setup in my workshed, and I added some shelving just to try to organize things a little bit better. But then Santa went and bought me a compound miter saw, and I kind of needed to rethink my setup a little bit. And I didn't completely redo what I had already done, but I did need to optimize the spacing just a little bit. And I really wanted to keep this storage cabinet here, this little bookshelf, but it just wasn't working in the space. So I moved it out and moved it into my craft room in my house, which is where I do a lot of my painting and a lot of the videos. I want to put my table saw here so that I can get to it a little bit easier when I need it for a project and not have to move a bunch of things around just to get to it and move it outside. Now I need to find a way to be able to store my binder saw in the shed and be able to use it in the shed, so I'm not having to drag it in and out all the time when I want to use it. And I thought I'd be able to leave it where it was at the back of the shed, but the sliding arm of the miter saw was hitting the workbench. There just wasn't enough clearance. Plus the stand just takes up a lot of space. And then it blocks me from being able to use any of my workbench at all. I mean, this saw just takes up so much space, but I like the stand and I like the saw. So anyway, so what I'm thinking here now is, where can I put this thing so that the arm has clearance and I maximize my storage space? So I'm having to take apart one of the shelves that I'd already built, but I needed that space for the arm of my miter saw. And this was a little bit stressful because I was losing a shelf for storage, and I like a lot of storage space. You cannot have too much storage. I just like things organized. Once I moved the saw into place and figured out I had enough clearance, I saw that I had enough room to put another shelf on top of the miter, well, not on top of the miter saw, but in the space above the miter saw. So I didn't really lose any storage space at all because I'm adding the shelf back. It's just in a different area. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm adding a back support, and then you'll see me adding the front support. And of course you have to use your level so that everything is nice and even and you don't have things all crooked and wonky and cattywampus. How many times can I use cattywampus in this video? Can you count them? I think I've only used it once, but you'll probably hear it again. So that one did fit, and I did have to do a little bit of surgery on the shelf, but you see I didn't lose the shelf at all. I just moved it up. And look at how perfect the miter saw fits in that space. It is perfect. It fits in there absolutely perfect. Everything is really starting to come together. I have a space now for all of my spray paints. And now on this side, I've decided to add a second shelf right between those two on the left-hand side, so that I have now 3 shelves, so that I have just a little bit more room to store all of my paints, which I've taken out of my craft room, which is inside the house. And again, just using all reclaimed wood that I already have. I'm not buying anything. This is probably, honestly, a fence board that I'm just using as the back support for another set of shelves. I did have to use a piece of 1x2 as the front support because I had just run out of any other scrap pieces, but this was a perfect time to use my miter saw for the first time in its new home. So just making sure everything is nice and level, because you don't want your shelf to be cattywampus. So making sure it's level, making sure it's level all across. And the shelving boards themselves are from a cabinet that I used to have in my craft room in my house that I no longer am using there because it sort of fell apart, but the shelves that were in the cabinet were still in good shape. So I'm just using them here. Why not? The wood is still good. Why not use it? I did have to do a little bit of cutting on that last piece just to make it fit in there, but that was easy enough. You just measure it out and cut it out with a jigsaw. It was pretty easy. It's press board, so it's not like it was you know, hard to cut. Oh, and this little table is a Santa gift too. It's one of those quick set DeWalt quick setup tables, and I did not cut enough, so I had to cut out a little notch there just to make it fit around that front support. And this gives me plenty of space for all of my paint cans and all of my little tools, because I was having to keep a lot of things on the floor, and I just really wasn't happy with having to search for anytime I needed anything. I was having to search for it. So this is just a lot better for me organization wise. I have a lot of space now, a lot of shelves, a lot of little cubbies. I really do like to keep things organized. I want to be able to have a place for everything. Well, almost everything. There are some things that I'm still having to work on, namely that little back workbench is still kind of a mess. I'm going to have to work on that a little bit, because I do have a lot of different projects that I sort of have in the back of my head, but I need to put into action. So part 2 of my craft shed remodel.